And finally, I forget what year we had that recession, 1980, something like
80.
that. I actually wrote a 3-page letter to the corporate office explaining the recession I could see coming, and that we should slow down production and not build too much inventory. And I was heavily criticized for that, but it came true.
Mm-hmm.
We had the recession. They had too much inventory. So anyway, there were a lot of problems that way. But actually, I'll have to say the corporate office did not interfere with my thinking or what I was doing down at Thompson until when business went bad all over the country.
So you guys basically became the engineers of...
From the School of Hard Knocks.
Right. No engineering degree?
No.
Just had to figure out an easier way to move concrete than buckets.
Yeah.
I'm self-educated.
Yeah. So at this time, is there any other engineers working with you?
Well, we had some engineers, yes, to figure out tensile strength of steel and things like that to build the boom. But they were not creative at all.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't come up with any ideas. They just do what we told them.
So at that point, were you using any software programs like CAD or
What's that?
Now
Yeah.
wait a minute. You said
you
said a bad word.
Do you know what,
I'll tell you what.
wait a minute. Excuse me. Let me ask him a question. Do you know what a Monroe calculator is?
No?
Okay, that was our computer. It would do 6 figures of mechanical. You punch the problem in, punch go, put your feet up on your desk and have lunch, and it was going rah, 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 click, 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 and it would come out with an answer.
Well, another thing about that, on that subject, I actually went to IBM for a 2-day school up in their main office to learn about computers, because I could see that we had so many thousand parts and pieces to keep track of, it was becoming difficult. And again, this is where the corporate office interfered. When they heard that I did that, they said, no, we're not interested in computers, because at that time they were so big and
Nobody
cumbersome.
had them.
But it sure would have been nice, because
Yeah.
the computer for inventory control consisted of the purchasing agent, my plant manager, and myself. We'd walk through the stock room and say, more of this, more of that, more of that, because we knew the levels we needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had what they called what the hell do we call that? A card system. Cardex system, where we keep track of the ordering of parts and when they come in and so on. But it was not easy.
So at the time of the 740, Thompson 740, what was the distance that people were pumping through 3-inch line?
Oh, I'd say maybe not over 200 feet.
200.
And that was these subterranean parking areas for apartment buildings.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be from the street to the back of that property.
And that was with pipe or hose?
Right.
With pipe. So 200 feet was the outer limit of what people were doing at the time?
Well, until Marvin came up with the changing of the hydraulic system to a high pressure system, which then increased the distance.
And what did it increase it to? Oh no.
1,000 feet or so.
1,000 feet. And what kind of pipe were you using? Where were you getting this pipe?
Just pipe.
Just two,
Like oil rig pipe or?
I've forgotten to read, we were using aluminum pipe because it was light. And the wear cost factor was acceptable. But then for some reason, there's something about the aluminum would mix with the concrete and do something, I don't know what it was. But no longer could use aluminum, so went to steel tube. Just plain old, I see in,
just plain old tube.
just plain old steel tube, and when it wore out, it wore out.
So you welded ends on them?
Welded these,
Cam lock ends,
Yeah.
you know, with the cam.
Right.
but that didn't last very long because this other company latched onto the idea of making these for the industry. So we didn't have to do it anymore.
What company? You remember?
I don't.
Conforms?
Conforms.
Conforms?
Yeah,
Al Castellic at the time, or was he
His
around?
name's familiar.
yeah.
You
Yeah, they're still around today, making great pipe and doing really well. So about 1,000 feet is what we're looking at here with the 740, the high pressure hydraulic system. And what's the what kind of pressure was it putting out?
1,000 psi. So we went from a rotary vane pump because when we first designed the hydraulic system for the first pumps, we didn't want the hydraulic system to be dangerous. So we wanted to use low pressure. So we used the Racine rotary vane pump. And when it pressured out, the rotor was just center. It wouldn't produce anymore. It was all automatic. So no, it couldn't get any high pressure onto the concrete. So we felt no one would get injured. Because how did we know how they were going to use these things? But then we switched over to the Sunstrand axial piston pump, which puts out 2.5 times as much pressure.
5,000.
Yeah.
Let's jump back a little bit, and you talked about coming up with the ball valve design. How'd you come up with the ball valve design? Because that design's still in place today, right?
Yeah.
Yes. We used on the grout pump, we used ball bearings that were used in roller bearings, but we had a deal with the bearing manufacturer that we took their rejects. Now the rejects were 0.0025 thousandths of an inch off. That doesn't sound like much, but the cost was way down. And a ball check valve for pumping grout sounds simple. You put a ball on a seat, the ball lifts and the grout goes around and the ball sets. But if there's any place in that chamber that the grout does not move, it sets. And as soon as it sets, it starts to grow. And eventually the ball is choked off. So the secret of the ball check valve was making sure that all the grout moved, that all portions of the inside of the ball chamber were polished because of the grout moving. And that was the arrangement that we had on the A4, and all the ball check valves that we built were designed that way. How did you design them that way? With a computer? We didn't know what a computer was. You visualized.
Right.
And you made plaster casts.
Right.
So that was did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. Quite a few companies have the ball valve
Yes.
pump right now.
Yeah.
So, and it's basically your design, right?
Well, I can't take, it's the design for the reason I just said, which they probably came to the same conclusion.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, what came after the 740?
That developed after time into the 100-foot boom, which we called the model 2001. But at the same time, we developed the 800 series after the 700 series. The 800 series was nothing more than a boom mounted on a rotary bearing, which means that the boom could rotate around and around and around in a circle without any hose attached to it.
And whose idea was that?
I don't know.
It came from you guys, though. You guys.
Yeah, well, we had this wholly owned subsidiary in England, and I found out that I could buy that bearing over there much cheaper. So we started building the boom with the bearing, and it was quite a difference between having that piece of hose flapping around up there between each stroke and having this solid pipe going up to the boom. And actually, I got the 800 series started in England before we started it here in the U.S. Because I respected my sales manager's decision to not introduce it here yet. I don't remember why.
Were you producing these in England?
We used it in England, yes.
You made it here in California?
No, we had a factory.
You had a factory in England.
Yeah, and we shipped them a lot of components by container, and then they would supply a few of the extras.
Yeah, I didn't know Thompson had a factory in England, or was this Royal at the time?
Well, no, it's the Thompson division that had it,
Okay.
and it was
Mark Thompson.
wholly owned subsidiary there in the London area. We named it Mark Thompson because Mr. Markman was known as Mr. Concrete of Europe, because they were the pumpcrete distributor in Europe. And of course, when they got the Thompson pump, the family resisted it because they didn't think it would work, because they knew how much trouble they had with the pumpcrete machine.
Right.
So, but it worked anyway.
Right.
Very successful in England and Europe.
So at this time, were there people that you conferred with or talked to, or was kind of doing the same type of thing you were doing in any other parts of the state or country? Pretty much, you guys are still.
Not really. No other manufacturers, but I would talk to people all over the world, customers,
Right.
and finding out what their needs were and how they would like to have the machine designed, you know.
Right.
And we had a customer in Belgium who ran a competition with Schwing to decide which pump they wanted. And they ended up ordering about 15 or 20 of the Thompson pumps.
18.
18.
18?